His latest book, or his award-winning book, and he has several more books that I'm sure he'll be more than glad to talk about. So, Ken, go for it.
Well, thank you very much, Alan. And while we're talking about Alan, I think we all owe him a round of applause.
Yes.
It is so unusual to have fine folks like Alan who really work so hard for authors, as an author yourself, and care so much about the craft and the trade, and you deserve great thanks. As does this wonderful bookstore, by the way. There's nothing like this. I was telling these fellas earlier how unique this is, at least in my travels around the world, to see so many wonderful independent books recognized and shared in this way. So well done. I would, as Alan said, I'd like to read from my new novel just briefly. It is my third. My first is John Doe No. 2 in the Dreamland Motel, which is about the Oklahoma City bombing. My second novel is The Restaurant at the End of the World, which is about the Windows in the World restaurant, the World Trade Center. And this third one, for a happier subject, I turn to Hurricane Katrina as my background. I really wanted to go positive and to have a more positive subject. Alan also asked me to mention my Beatles work. I'm probably more well known as a Beatles author. I have 4 books on the Beatles. My 4th is coming out this week. The Beatles Encyclopedia, Everything Fab Four. Not my title. Okay. Anyway, I'm glad to read for you today. This is Play the Angel, and if you recognize the title, it's because I stole it wholesale from the band Depeche Mode. I know they understand and largely do not care. It's about a woman who is a kind of female superhero who comes by her superherodom, as superheroes do, because she has a dark backstory, a backstory that must be requited, that must be dealt with. Of course, she also has a secret identity, as superheroes also do. By day, she is a living statue in the French Quarter, and she plays the Statue of Liberty. By night, she's the Angel of Mercy, and she goes around the French Quarter doing good deeds and saving people from peril, righting the world, fighting injustice, etc., etc. So this is an early story from the book. It's called A Mighty Woman with a Torch. And it is a few inner thoughts of my characters that I'll share with you just briefly. Here we go. I have magical powers. I can feel them, even now, quickening inside of me as I stand here, taut and immobile amongst the movable throng of Jackson Square. Some 20 yards away, with the cast iron fence that surrounds the park, sits the famous statue of General Andrew Jackson, forever on horseback, reviewing his troops before the final decisive Battle of New Orleans that brought the War of 1812 to its heroic close. Years later, after a very different Battle of New Orleans in 1862, Union General Benjamin Beast Butler, his real name, would order the inscription of the stirring words, "The Union must and shall be preserved," on the statue's plinth. But that's another story. It would literally take a team of Union soldiers and then some to force me to even glance, much less shift my body, northwesterly as the crow flies, in General Jackson's direction. My shoulders are frozen in time and space, my face transfixed, my lips unsmiling, my eyes staring straight ahead at the embankment as the tourists mill about Decatur Street, trolling for souvenirs, climbing aboard the horse and buggies that will ferry them to the uptown restaurants, sniffing the beignets just up the street at Café du Monde. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a disheveled, hard-looking blonde lumbering into view, no doubt having wandered over from Bourbon Street, a red sippy cup still cradled in her drunken hands. She may be a bit wobbly on her feet, but there is little doubt about her mission. As she inches ever closer, she stares boldly at my take. Will she make a move on the coonskin cap, with its motley collection of loose change and crumpled up dollar bills, resting near the hem of my patina-tinted gown? Or is she testing me like everyone else, hoping to see if I will interrupt my perfect stone-like posture to shoo her away? But it's nothing of the sort, really. As she sidles up to my right, I can see her gingerly removing $1 from her soiled pants pocket. She teeters above my coonskin cap now, counting out 4 quarters. Ladies and gentlemen, the French Quarter's only honest drunk has made her first appearance of the new millennium, and she is making change rather audaciously from my take, and in broad daylight no less. I might as well be an ATM machine. I've seen it all here at the corner of St. Peter and Decatur. Just yesterday, New Orleans' finest wrestled a pickpocket to the ground behind me. I could feel their billy clubs graze the backs of my legs as they handcuffed him, holding him prone against the pavement and waiting for reinforcements from the Canal Street station. Throughout the entire fracas, I didn't so much as move an inch. I never made a sound, never revealed a thing. I was frozen as still as old hickory over there. Just like I'm frozen stiff right now. Eyes dead ahead, my body rigid, unmoving. I am holding my telltale torch aloft in my right hand while clutching the famous tablet, boldly inscribed with American history's most cherished date, July 4th, 1776, against my torso with the other. My crown, lightweight of course, with its 7 rays spiking outwardly from the direction of my head, completes my ensemble. And let's not forget my wooden, unflinching face, masked as it is by the patina-colored stage makeup Nadia had applied a few hours ago over at Royal Street Rags. "It's the Statue of Liberty, Mom," a youngster suddenly cries out to my right, his voice booming from the direction of St. Peter Street. He sounds vaguely Southern, North Carolina perhaps. It takes everything I have and then some to keep a straight face, from allowing myself to break into a smile. Feeling my lips beginning to crinkle ever so slightly around the edges, I revert to my emergency, no holds barred, trying to keep it all together tactic. Long division. I set things into motion by taking a mental count of the hatware in my purview. Naturally, I'm going to need a dividend to make all of this work. There's the shoeshine boy with the Saints cap in the foreground, and 6 make that 7 white-capped frat guys loitering nearby, trying to decide, no doubt, if it's too early to begin trolling Bourbon Street. It's never too early, fellas, just you're in the Big Easy now. Then there's the regulation hat-wearing beat cop standing on Decatur Street's curb, his attention focused on a bikini-clad co-ed blithely staring into the windows of the House of Voodoo. And let's not forget my latest customer, who stands right in front of me now, mesmerized by the opportunity to be gawking at an honest-to-goodness living statue in the flesh. He looks to be about 7 years old, and he's wearing, bingo, a Carolina Panthers cap, which makes a grand total of 10. Strike that, 11, counting the backwards baseball cap on the head of my drunk, who seems preoccupied by the presence of the beat cop. She must be really tanked. And now for my divisor. Let's see what we have here. Contestant number 1 is a street artist stationed just outside the perimeter of St. Louis Cathedral's wrought iron fence. Sitting beneath a multicolored umbrella, he plies away on a garish nighttime portrait of one of the balconied homes on Chartres Street. A crowd of tourists watches him as he works his magic. His wares, various street scenes from around the corner, are arrayed on the fence behind him, and his coffee cup announces him to be the world's #1 dad. But the numeral won't do for our purposes here. As factorials go, 1 divides far too smoothly into everything, including itself. Sorry, number 1. Scanning backwards toward the embankment, I spot contestant number 2, a white-smocked dough roller from Café du Monde. His arms, everything, even his neck and forehead are covered in flour. He's carrying a styrofoam coffee cup from Baskin-Robbins. With all of that chicory brewing where he works, he goes up the street for 31 flavors. What a traitor. But 31 won't get it done for this particular game. It would take the rest of my shift and then some to handle the remainder. Close but no cigar. But what do we have here? Contestant number 3 is a hippie handing out restaurant coupons to passers-by on the corner. As irony would have it, he's wearing an ancient 3 Dog Night t-shirt. This is too good a find to pass up. Talk about your joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea. It would be a slap in the face of rock and roll history to choose otherwise. The rudiments of my equation are now set. 11 cats divided by 3 Dog Night. 3 into 11 produces a factor of 3. But that's only the beginning, really, because now we get to the heart of my little diversion here. We need to compute the remainder. The Carolina kid is still staring at me, caught up in the wonder of the moment. Other tourists are joining him and his mother now, just waiting to see if I so much as flinch. Even the beat cop watches, probably hoping for me to crack, to give an inch and break the illusion. I am keenly aware that any perceptible movement would kill the mystery. A stray eyelash, the slightest quiver of a lip. With long division, I only require myself to carry out the remainder for 2 places. Our factor of 3, multiplied by 3 Dog Night gives us 9. 11 caps less 9 leaves 2. Dropping a 0 from the dividend gives us 20, and 3 goes into a 20 a total of 6 times, which gives us a quotient after dropping another 0 of 3.66. Perhaps 1 isn't the loneliest number after all. So goes the logic and order of mathematics. Meanwhile, back in Jackson Square, the boy's stocky, emotionless mother dutifully hands him $1 from her purse. After staring at it for a moment, he carefully deposits the bill into my coonskin cap. And with that, another satisfied customer goes on his way, trailing his mother somewhat reluctantly in the direction of the pedestrian mall up the street. Crisis averted for now. Thank you very much.
Have you ever attempted to be a statue of a
I have not. I have not attempted such work. But I admire them. Last week in London, I saw a particularly strange one. Apparently this is the new fad. He was Yoda. And he had his what do you call it, his staff, his Yoda staff. His Yoda staff he did. And he was standing next to it, and but he was off the ground by 2 or 3 feet. Has anyone seen these living statues? It was very strange. And he was sort of hovering there, but his hand was resting very firmly. I don't know how they do it. And of course you don't want to touch them because that's weird. But I do admire their work. And I admire the culture. It's a fascinating culture, sort of a world to lose yourself in, which all of us seem to do, right?
Right.
Anybody else? You want to tell us about your upcoming books?
I have a new Beatles book coming out this week. I mentioned it, Everything Fab 4. It's a 1,000,000-word encyclopedia that took quite a long time to put together. At one point, I distracted myself, and this was a rather poor writerly choice, by attempting to catalog every cover version ever done of a Beatles song. And my wife said, "You realize your publisher does not want this." And then she said, and the reader probably does not want this. But I found that once I started, and you probably know this phenomenon, I couldn't stop. So I took like a month off from the writing of the encyclopedia to catalog everything. But I don't know why I'm telling you that, because it's not in the book. It was fun to write. The Beatles story is such a large one. It's an immense story that is told many, many times over, and often badly, sometimes by me. But it is a beautiful one indeed. Yes, ma'am.
So what led you to be interested in the Beatles? Just who they were at a certain time?
It was the Beatles cartoons. I saw them in 1978. My favorite show at the time was the New Zoo Review. Do you recall that? A lovely show that was on in the morning. It was about a sort of a little neighborhood set, and I would eat my King Vitamin and watch that show. And one day they stopped running the New Zoo Review, and was I pissed? And instead they started showing the old Beatles cartoons. And that drew me in. That's when it all happened.
Anybody else?
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here, and thanks again, Alan.